Hello students, today we are going to know about historiography in the modern period after knowing ancient period as well as medieval period historiography. In the 20th century, the Indian archaeological exploration and research started under the British rule. A number of ancient sites were excavated under the supervision of Sir Alexander Cunningham, the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. He chose mainly the sites mentioned in the Buddhist texts for this purpose. Harappan civilization was discovered during the tenure of Sir John Marshall. Because of this discovery, the antiquity of Indian history could be traced to 3rd millennium before Common Era or even earlier. So that 20th century, while digging work took place, then certain kinds of sites have been got actually discovered. During that period, British were ruling here, and Sir Alexander Cunningham, who was the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, took highest interest as he found certain sites under the soil. So that he chose mainly the sites mentioned in the text, Buddhist text for this purpose. So that look about means how exactly the scriptures or else writings which actually are going to put some light on ancient period's life. Harappan civilization was discovered during the tenure of Sir John Marshall, one more British officer under whose leadership actually Harappan civilization has been got found. So that because of the discovery of antiquity of Indian history, it can be traced to that of very ancient period civilization, or else that is of a 3000 or else even more than that years back. Actually it tells that Indians have civilized. To this extent, this excavation work helped us to know our Indian history to a greater extent. The photos you can get to see Alexander Cunningham and John Marshall. Many British officials in India wrote about Indian history. Their writings display strong influence of the colonial policies of the British. So that most of the British written books which are sources of history of India, in which we can found saying that they have tried to show their culture as superior than that of rest including India. So that in their writing, influence of colonial policies is to be seen even today. So that to know our history properly, we must depend upon the works of our Indian writers of ancient period, medieval period as well as of modern period, so that only we will come to know properly that what kind of India was earlier present. 3 volumes of the History of British India written by James Mill were published in 1870. This was the first book on Indian history written by a British historian. It clearly reflects an absence of objective perspective and prejudice about various aspects of the Indian culture. So that 3 volumes of the History of British India. It has been got written by James Mill and got published in 1817, that means 19th century. This is the first book on Indian history written by one of the British historian. So that through this book we can come to the conclusion saying that it is having the absence of objectivity or any kind of objective, next to that perspective and prejudice about the various aspects of Indian culture. The History of India, written by Mount Stuart Elphinstone, Governor of Bombay, now Mumbai, was published in 1841. Means all these were actually the books which are written having the influence of their own culture and not of India. The period of Maratha Empire is very important in the Indian history. Grand Duff's name stands out among the British officers who wrote about Maratha history. He wrote the book entitled A History of Marathas. This book is published in the 3 volumes. Grand Duff's writing also shows the British inclination of condemning Indian culture and history. Similar Similar tendency is witnessed in Colonel Todd's writing about Rajasthan's history. So that by this you are coming to know that Maratha Empire was very important in Indian history because it had got extended on a very large extent. So that the Marathas history has been actually got written by one of the British officer by name Grand Duff. His book in which he had written about Maratha history has been named as a History of Marathas. This book has been got published in 3 volumes. That means very long history he had written, but we have to remember saying that here too they have not left condemning our Indian culture, and along with that one more person by name Grand Duff who wrote history of this book is published in 3 volumes. Grand Duff's writing also shows the British inclination of condemning Indian culture and history. Next to that, Rajasthan's history has been got written by Colonel Todd, who is also of the same tendency. That means they used to condemn demean Indian culture and try to show even through their writing that British culture is superior. So such kind of tendency is to be seen. That means they have actually neglected with the objective with what they have started to write. Their intention was nothing but condemning the culture of our land over which they have ruled near about 150 years quite strongly. Near about 250 years they were here, but 150 they have actually exploited Indians like anything, and they have not even left of passing the knowledge to the next generation by keeping in mind the superiority of their culture and showing Indian culture as inferior. Wilson Hunter on Indian history, the 2 volumes written by William Wilson Hunter on Indian history show a somewhat impartial treatment of the subject. So somewhere 1-2 British officers can be seen who have actually gave importance for impartial writing. Neelkanth Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade were 2 Indian historians who took up a task of exposing the limitations of Grand Duff's writing. So already we have come across that how exactly Grand Duff tried his best to condemn Indian culture in his book A History of Marathas. So that against to this, during the period, Neelkanth Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade stood for writing to show actually the limitations of Grand Duff's writings. That means these 2 Indians tried their best to show the actual narration of our Indian history of the period, that means of Marathas. So in this manner, even in the field of history writing, retaliation was got met by British officers at that period, and it was must. or else even today we would have been actually, though British were not here, accepting the writings of theirs. So as these people have tried their best to show our rich and great culture of India, to some extent we have become able to maintain our culture, and it is our responsibility too, as we belong to this land. 2.2 Indian historiography, various ideological frameworks.